What's up, everybody? Rage Against the Clampdown here. I'm sure I'm going to have some new viewers, so let me briefly introduce myself before we get this video started. My name is Nick Ford. I am a left libertarian, so I have some different views from what Dusty is talking about in his video, but I feel that I should still address what libertarianism is to me and what it should be about, as opposed to what Dusty seems to think it's about. I don't really think it has anything to do with that. So I'm going to come from a slightly different perspective from what he's talking about. Well, not really slightly. It's pretty radically different from what he's talking about. But I still feel a lot of his inner assumptions about a lot of it is pretty bad. And a lot of his assertions about what libertarianism is about generally or broadly is about. He seems to think that the Libertarian Party is equatable to libertarians. I don't believe that's true. Not all libertarians are in the LP. And not all of them even like the LP. I certainly don't have any fondness for the LP. So I just want to kind of clarify where I'm coming from. If you want to know more about my left libertarianism, I will link a video in the description that is like a 13-minute video on my left libertarianism. So that'll give you kind of an idea of where I'm coming from. Briefly though, I just want to dispel a lot of what Dusty was talking about. Before I do that, libertarianism is the definition. So libertarianism, so the focal point of libertarianism is obviously liberty. Whatever you define as liberty as a concept or a value, because it's the most important value to them, makes you a certain kind of libertarian. So for instance, I think that liberty is a very left concept because it involves giving all power to the people, involves decentralization, involves a lot of ideas about equality of authority and a culture of solidarity based on mutual aid and direct action. So very left values that I believe reflect the my highest value, which is liberty. So libertarianism, basically the foundational value of libertarianism is obviously liberty. How you describe or define liberty makes you a certain sort of libertarian. So there's left libertarians and right libertarians, at least for me. Some people don't see it like this, I do. So the left libertarians are people who tend to be anarchists, who tend to not necessarily anarcho-capitalists, but tend to eschew from capitalism, oppose the current system and see it, like Dusty does, as a form of capitalism, take the concerns of corporations very seriously, environmental waste and destruction very seriously, and so on. So that's a little bit of, as opposed to that, where a lot of what Dusty's talking about is what I would consider right libertarianism, and even some of it I think is even giving an uncharitable read to right libertarians. So there's this other guy, another friend of mine. You might hear some noise in the background, sorry. This other guy named Radical Tendencies, and he just did a video responding to you as well, Dusty. I think it was pretty good. You know, some small areas where I don't necessarily would use his rhetoric, where I wouldn't necessarily use Radical's rhetoric, but his main points are pretty solid. So go check it out. I'll link it in the description. So let's start off. Unlike Radical, though, I'm going to look at your whole video, at least most of it, at points you just basically regurgitate what you've already said, or repeat yourself, really. So you say so libertarians apparently think the market has magical self-regulating properties. Well, no, that's not true. That's not a libertarian position at all. The libertarian position is actually that the market is made up of people, and treating the market as some sort of external entity bigger than the individuals who make it up isn't a libertarian idea at all, because it de-individualizes people as well as disempowers them, because it downplays the real effects that they have on the marketplace. For more on the more consistent position on markets and how people relate to them, I recommend Regulation Red Herring by Sheldon Richman, We Are Market Forces by Charles Johnson, and The Market Doesn't Discipline Ron Paul, We Do. And I will link all that stuff in the description. So, yeah, we don't believe that the market is somehow magical. It's made up of people. People aren't magical. People in the government aren't magical. People are just people. There's no magic. Of course, I'm sure as an atheist you would agree with that. So we don't believe that the market is magical or that it has some sort of weird power to operate perfect or under perfect guidelines. I don't believe any libertarian seriously contends this. If they do, I don't really think they're much of a libertarian. You talk about the real world that we live in. Well, libertarians of all stripes really take issue with the world we live in to begin with. So they're obviously not saying that the marketplace being able to self-regulate itself can exist under current conditions, but that they intend to change them for the better through various means. Now, whether you think that that is for the better or whether those means are good is a separate question from whether they actually want to change things or not. Clearly they do. Just as you don't think we can have a good economy under current conditions, and therefore don't simply just think it will happen anyways through magical properties of governments. Well, I won't get into that. But rather want to change conditions so that, in your opinion, anyways, government can do its job better. But there's also something I want to bring up called the charitable interpretation, which I think you might be worth looking into here. I don't really think it's a good use of your time to interpret libertarians as just saying that things are just magical and they'll just work out perfectly. I think that a more charitable interpretation would be saying that libertarians are saying that this would be the best social mechanism to achieve more prosperity and happiness for people, which is what you of course want too. So I think a better charitable reading is that instead of what you're saying. And it was something else I was going to say, but I'll just move on. So you talk about corporations. Well, again, there's a difference between right and left libertarians. Obviously, you're mostly talking about the right, so I'm not saying that you're necessarily wrong about the right, but the fact that it is that there's a left and that not all libertarians toe the party line. Some libertarians think that corporations' abilities like limited liability and other state-guaranteed privileges are very much opposed to what libertarians are about, because libertarians are supposed to be about anyway. Responsibility, individualism, and all this other kind of stuff. And corporations obviously don't incorporate that when the very mechanical functions of corporations is basically disempower and de-individualize workers within their functions and structures due to how they operate. Corporations are, at least the big ones, the really big ones, like let's say GM, really treat workers like a cog in the machine and de-individualize and depersonalize them. Now, a lot of right libertarians don't see this, let alone see corporations as a threat, at least most of the time. But it's worth noting that many libertarians do, even some right libertarians really do, which honestly, obviously diminishes the amount of rightness that they are or have. But you can still recognize that corporations can be a problem while still saying, well, they can be a problem, but I think we can fix it through free market regulation or whatever. So I don't believe in corporations. Not that I don't think they're real, but I don't think that they should exist in a truly free market, just like radical tendencies talked about. So I don't think they'd exist. I think firms in a free market would be slimmer, more agile, more numerous, and smaller. Decentralized. I'll put a link in the description about that. Again, I'm not going to make like huge overarching points. I just want to say something. I'm not trying to convince you or your followers of much here. Really, this is just to organize my own thoughts and how to really deal with the 101 strawmans of libertarianism, because that's what you're doing. A lot of this is just blatant strawmans of what libertarianism is about. Just like Radical Tendency said, pretty much your whole video is made up of very, very angrily spoken strawmans, which doesn't make it any more right, by the way. So you say that people are stupid, people are dumb, ignorant, lazy-minded monkeys. I took the time to really make sure I quoted you correctly, but we'll come back to that later. So they don't have time. You say that people don't have time to regulate these corporations. Well, first off, you're going to have to make time. If you want any sort of economy or any sort of political community or whatever to function, people are going to have to make time so that they can actually make sure that they have control over the institutions and environments that are around where they live. Otherwise, there's no real point of having the community to begin with. So people are going to have to learn to make time. Another thing you said is that people are working, they're watching TV, they're doing this. There's this interesting essay by Bob Black, who's an anarchist, post-leftist anarchist or something like that, and he talks about the abolition of work, and I'd recommend that as an essay. I'll link that in the description. But the thing to keep in mind here is that we should really reduce the amount of hours that we work so we can actually have a more consistent part in the communities that we want to have and we want to shape, and the lives that we want to have. If we can reduce the amount of hours that we need to work And I don't mean work in a general sense, like, you know, cutting down trees so you have firewood for the winter or whatever. I mean work in the corporatized part of the economy, in which work is, you know, the 9 to 5 hour shift day, working for a boss, and, you know, working in those really de-individualizing, depersonalizing, cog in the machine environments. Now, of course, not all businesses are like this, but to the extent that they are, I do oppose it, and I think it is to a big extent. And even if we couldn't reduce work, or let's say that we could somehow, and I'm not even calling for the abolition of work, I don't necessarily see that as plausible or desirable necessarily, but I think it's something to work towards, maybe. You would want to increase decentralization and lessen information/knowledge problems. People like Mises and Hayek, Austrian economists. I'm not an expert on economics or their work by any means, but I am familiar with these lessons that they teach us, and I think they're good ones. The information and knowledge problems for huge institutions and you know, businesses and stuff like that are gigantic, and they really apply to these big institutions, these businesses, as much as, you know, anything else. So what we really have to do is decentralize them and put them more in the hands of popular control, democratize them basically, rather than leaving them up to the whims of the bosses or the managerial system or the state or whatever. We need to increase the access that people have. You say that nobody does this anyway. Well, obviously no one in the government, at least in your opinion, is much worth it if it's broken and useless like you say it is, right, like it is right now, right? So you want to change things, right? So do libertarians. Libertarians want to change the fact that not a lot of people pay attention to things like you brought up BP. BP is a good example of why corporations, I don't think, would exist in a truly freed market. In fact, there's this article by Kevin Carson called "In a Truly Freed Market, BP Would Be Toast." So I'm going to link that in the description. And so the market cannot self-regulate itself. There's this article by a professor of philosophy at Auburn University called Roderick, and he has this thing, this blog post at his blog called "How to Do Things with Words." And what you're basically doing here is you're engaging left conflationism. What you're doing is you're saying that the current marketplace reflects capitalism, and therefore markets are capitalism, and therefore we should be against it. So yeah, basically what you're just doing is you're treating the problems of today's economy and imposing that on the economy that libertarians want to see, which, even if we took the worst case scenario of like Libertarian Party objectivists, doesn't necessarily, at least in some ways, have much to do with today's economy. They do want to change things, even if I'll say that it's definitely not as much as I want to see. So you say people are terrible. People are terrible, selfish assholes who will do whatever they can to get over their fellow man, even a little bit. So that, more or less, that's what you said. And here it comes. Here's one of the biggest things here's one of the weirdest things I think people like you who support a state can say. And then you say, and that's why we need to have a government. More or less, that's what you said. That's a complete non sequitur. Just because people are terrible, selfish assholes who will do whatever they can to get over their fellow man, as well as lazy, dumb, ignorant, and monkeys, or lazy-minded monkeys, as you said, doesn't mean we need a government. That doesn't follow at all. In fact, I think it actually follows more. I'm not saying it follows completely, but I think you could better make an argument that it follows more, that would mean that we shouldn't have a government, or at least we shouldn't have as big of a government as we do. If people are really so terrible, so stupid, so evil, so selfish, such assholes, we shouldn't have a conglomeration of people, because that's what the government's made out of, people. They might be experts of their field, they might be the people in the leading industry, but they're still people. They will still be terrible, selfish assholes. There's no good reason that you gave, at least, if you have one, let me know, that these people wouldn't be the same selfish assholes. If you say that, for instance, as a counterpoint, that, well, I'd rather have terrible people in charge than no one in charge. Well, the idea of left-libertarianism is to have everybody in charge. The idea of anarchism is to have everybody in charge of their own bodies, and also be in charge of what they justly use and own, and whatever else. So anarchism doesn't really, or even libertarianism more generally speaking, doesn't have anything to do with saying that people are perfect or people are terrible. It's a mix of people are good and bad, and at least for me personally, the bad wins out in current day society because there's a lot of more incentives to be bad than there are to be good, and bad behavior is rewarded while good behavior is typically forgotten, stepped on, or whatever. Now, to see that people actually aren't like this, now this is even assuming that you're right. I don't think you're right at all. Look at studies that were done by people like Peter Kropotkin. He did Mutual Aid, a Factor in Evolution, which showed that under the worst of conditions, animals, creatures that are a whole lot less smart than us, in the worst of conditions actually cooperate with each other and don't actually kill each other. Axelrod, The Evolution of Cooperation, was a big study that basically proved that people exist through voluntary cooperation and that they need this cooperation in order to survive. And people often do it just to help other people out. And honestly, government won't save you. Government is made out of people. The same terrible, selfish, lazy-minded people that you think people generally are, people in the government are those same people. People are people, man. There's no real difference here going on, at least not one that you've shown. If you can show it that there's somehow a difference between government people and the people below them, by the way, that basically means that you admit that there are different classes of people, and I'm against such a class system, in the sense of there being ruled and a ruled class and a ruler class. Not necessarily against classes in totality. I'm not an anarcho-communist. But anyway, I'm against that, and so even if you're right that there's a certain class of people up here, I'm against that class. I don't care if they are experts or whatever. They have no moral or legitimate authority over me. And anyway, I'm getting off on tangents, and I'm not necessarily going to defend all that. So, at least not right now. I can later. You say we have unbridled capitalism. As a left libertarian, I don't have any problems with that. One of the very few things I didn't have a problem with. But that's why we need more regulations. Well, so I recommend you check out a few things, and I have read all these things. I haven't actually read Kropotkin's or Axelrod's studies, but I hear they're very good, informative, and thought-provoking. So I would suggest them. I've not read them myself, though. I cannot verify how good or bad they are, but these things I can. They're all pretty good. So Roderick Long, again, Regulation, the Cause, Not the Cure of the Financial Crisis. Joseph Stromberg, The Role of State Capitalism in the American Empire. Roy Childs Jr.'s The Rise of American Statism and Big Business, and Gabriel Kolko's The Triumph of Conservatism. That's actually the only one there I haven't read, but if you don't want to read that, because that's a book, just read Roy Childs Jr. and Stromberg, and you'll basically get the same sort of message. But basically, regulatory capture, you need a totalitarian watch state probably to just have so many regulations that businesses can't do anything bad, that they can't do it, is what you said. So much regulations that they can't do it. Do what the it is here, I'm guessing bad things, bad things. But regulatory capture, that is where regulatory commissions are basically have a conflict of interest due to the people involved in it. Again, the same selfish, asshole, lazy-minded people that you think inhabit society in general are also in these committees, by the way. They would necessarily have to be. Are part of these regulatory commissions, and typically, a lot of the times, they are actually part of the corporations that they're either regulating or they're a rival to the I mean, how do you think these people on these committees get there? They get there through special privileges doled out by the state and doled out by the corporations and doled out by the culture, which is just a very subservient culture. So it's no surprise that a lot of the regulatory committees are very ineffective, and that's not any surprise. They're designed to be that way. So you're saying, how could it not lead to corporatism? How could capitalism not lead to Well, I'm against capitalism, but I'm for markets. I know that sounds weird, but I don't think markets necessarily must result in capitalistic patterns of ownership. I don't think that necessarily markets must lead to capitalism or corporatism. Corporatism is just basically a certain kind of capitalism where the capital is not necessarily accumulated in those who have the most capital, but those who have control over things called corporations, which are a legal fiction, which are created through state privileges. And so, how can it not lead to that? Well, I think that self-regulation isn't a myth. I think self-regulation is really just everybody in a community or in a marketplace, because the market isn't this big entity, abstract thing. It's something that we all are a part of. We're not necessarily all a part of right now because the state's interference in it and the corporation's interference and the whole culture around the marketplace is completely toxic. And that's not necessarily because everybody's stupid and lazy-minded, but it's because there are so many disincentives to actually be active in communities and actually care. So I think if we got rid of a lot of these disincentives and we decentralized things a lot more and gave more power to the people, I think it'd be a lot harder for things to lead back to any sort of capitalism. I'm not going to give you a full-blown out argument, but just give you a few examples. You say government's not evil. Man, do I disagree with this. Taxation, war. I mean, the history of states is conquest. Just look at Franz Oppenheimer's The State, which is a good read. I have read it. And even Murray Rothbard's The Anatomy of the State. But I would just suggest Franz Oppenheimer's because he uses a lot of Oppenheimer, so you might as well just go to the source. And it's not terribly long either. But taxation, I mean, you're taking people's money. I don't want to get into the taxation as theft argument. I might have to, but taxation is taking the property away from people. We can talk about whether that's legitimate or not, but I think we all have to agree that taxation is the government taking your money with or without your consent. Now, you can say you have implied consent. That's a whole nother topic. We can get into that if you or any of the commenters want. But my point is that government takes your money, your property, and I'm not like a proprietarian or whatever. Property isn't like the foundation of my philosophical values or whatever. Liberty is. But they are taking property, which in this case does impact your material conditions, which impacts, your success. So down the line, it does have relation to liberty. And then, of course, the state engages in mass murder, which it calls war. We've seen from WikiLeaks that war. I mean, we should already know this, and you already know this. I'm surprised that you're so pro-state and regulation when you're don't support the troops. That's a huge anti-war sentiment, and even a good number of libertarians would agree with you. Yet you're dividing us up all completely along economic lines. And the history of states, like I said, is all based on conquest. It was all a small bunch of thieves. Again, Locke and Hobbes, their idea of how states were formed wasn't some sort of epistemological or scientific study. It was a thought experiment. That's all it was. It wasn't something that actually happened. People like to think that, Hobbes and Locke said that states actually formed like this. Well, no, it was a thought experiment. What if states had formed completely along voluntary lines? Well, then, yeah, maybe they'd have some validity to them, but that's not how history actually happened, and Oppenheimer explains this. So you say there's a reason why every country in the world has one being government. Well, quite simply, this is argumentum ad populum. In other words, you're arguing just because a lot of people have it, or it exists for a lot of people, it's therefore, legitimate, and that's just stupid. I'm sorry, but to be blunt, that's stupid. Lots of countries have murder. Lots of countries have rape and theft and all these terrible things, and war and death. And whatever else, and just to say, well, all countries have that stuff. That doesn't make it bad. Well, it doesn't make it bad. It doesn't make it good. It's just this is how it is. That doesn't mean that you can necessarily prove how it ought to be. I guess I'm sort of using Hume's is-ought dichotomy here, or gap, is-ought problem, philosophical problem. Anyway. So I don't find that convincing, just because every country in the entire world, and in fact that's not really true. I don't think every country in the entire world, at least if we're talking about country and landmass, has one. But anyway, even if you were right, it's just an argumentum ad populum. It's nothing that should really be taken seriously by libertarians responding to you, even though I kind of just dealt with it seriously. So a hypocrite is me. So what about the poor? Well, so you talk about schools and all that stuff. I don't want to get into it too much because, you know, it's going to take away from the rest of the stuff, and I'm just briefly going into some of what you're saying. But what about the poor? So I think that the most important things are solidarity, so it's showing support for people, not unconditional, unwavering, absolutist support, but support through economic and social ties in communities. Again, I'm sorry if you hear background noise. People are doing stuff in the lawns over there. Mutual aid, which is just a sort of an economic exchange that benefits both parties, that makes them better off. It can be either in the short term or the long term. Individual responses, you know, people giving money to others, or just doing pro bono things. I think there are plenty of options for the poor, and I don't even think really they'd be poor in the same sense that they would be now anyway, but that's a bigger discussion. You talk about survival of the fittest. I think it's actually funny to mention that the guy who's supposed to be credited with that, Herbert Spencer, was a libertarian, and there's some big misconceptions about him and what he said, and even though he like basically invented the term survival of the fittest, at least I'm pretty sure he did, he wasn't in favor of leaving the poor to die or fuck them. Like that's a lot of what you say. You just say, well, libertarians just say fuck them. I don't really know of any libertarians who say this, but to make my point is that even Herbert Spencer, the guy who allegedly came up with survival of the fittest, didn't say this shit. So yeah. So you say there's plenty of money to go around, the government can just print it. Look, that obviously would cause inflation, and just because something's an invented concept doesn't mean we can just fuck around with it and just do whatever we want, which isn't what you're saying necessarily, but it is problematic to treat money like it's so plentiful. Clearly it's not for a lot of people. The greater good. So I'm not going to like invoke Godwin's law and like throw out commies and Nazis at you. I am going to say more seriously though that there's big philosophical problems with talking about something like the greater good, because the greater good is abstracting away from individuals. Now, I don't have any problem with groups existing or collectives existing. Collectives are based on individuals, and individuals often fulfill their individuality through groups and collectives. So I have nothing against groups or collectives, but and I have nothing against helping the poor or whatever, but this concept of the greater good, I just think there are huge philosophical problems with it. So, for example, the greater good, like I said, relies on some sort of abstraction from the individual. We're not talking about individuals anymore, and we don't necessarily always have to be, but when you're not talking about an individual's problems and instead saying, well, not only how it affects society at large, but that the individual isn't really that important, it's more of society that's important. You're trampling on people, you're trampling on their individual rights. The problem with me saying there are huge philosophical problems is that I just wrote in my notes philosophical problems, and then I forgot to elaborate. So I'm kind of ill-prepared, so I'm just thinking off the top of my head, so I'm sorry if this is sloppy. But anyway, the greater good has big philosophical problems with it. Apparently I couldn't have been helped to elaborate on what problems. I thought they were going to come to me. But I just don't think it's helpful to think in such terms. If you want to think about society or the social effects of individual actions, that's fine, but there's no greater good. People have lots of differences in individualities and uniqueness to them. You can't just reduce it down to some greater good, because 5.5 billion trillion people or whatever in the US, I know, I'm not looking up statistics, just making up numbers. It's a big number, obviously. Aren't reducible down to one singular good. I think that's just hugely, grossly inaccurate, and it's just begging for mistakes to be made. So you say that they want to get rid of public education. Here's one thing you've gotten right. At least most libertarians want to get rid of it, if not hugely disempower the state's involvement from it, or at least have voucher systems. So it's not completely clear-cut, but this is mostly right. But privatization isn't the only way. Homeschooling, unschooling, community schooling, there's a lot of other ways to school people without profit being involved necessarily. Now, you say everything shouldn't be privatized, or you say that libertarians say that everything should be privatized. Another difference between left libertarians and right libertarians, I think there's a big emphasis on privatizing everything. There's even a shirt with this guy named Hans Hermann Hoppe, and it says privatize everything. So yeah, that obviously does exist. I don't really agree with it. I think that communities should be able to decide their own. I think there are better ways than others, so I'm not saying I'm just relativistic, but typically I think communities will work out what works best for them. I don't typically think that privatization is always the best thing, but it might work in some cases. So that's kind of the difference there. So you say every successful you say you're talking about the Libertarian Party, and again, I just want to emphasize, not all Libertarians are LP members, and the LP really hasn't hijacked the Libertarian term. I've been in Libertarian circles for about 3 years now, or more. If not almost 3 years, then more than 3 years now. And it's not reducible down to the LP. Like, again, you're just vastly oversimplifying it. So you say everyone's successful, everyone that's made money because the system was created that allowed them to make money. Well, I don't know if allowed is the best use of terms. Like, why are people allowing me to make money? I should be free to make money if I want to, under my own terms. I should be able to freely contract out my services or my ideas and be paid for them. It shouldn't be a matter of allowance, but free movement for all. And it wasn't made for us, or for that reason. You pointed out that it's broken and useless now, and that it's taken over by corporations. We can go back and forth on that, but the point is that it wasn't made for people to make money. It was made for a certain class of people to make money, sure, but that's different from everyone making money. And honestly, the successful people in the economy are pretty worthy of skepticism in my eyes, because a lot of the profit that they make off is based on government privilege. So, there's this anarchist named Gary Chartier. You're talking about paying back into the system. He has this great book called Conscience of an Anarchist. In the first chapter, just the first chapter, that's all you'd have to read. It's only, I think it's under 10 pages long. Pretty easy to understand. He has objections to this kind of remark. I couldn't find Gary's book, so I can't give you a response like I intended to, but just look up his book, buy it. It's a great book. I've only been 3 chapters in, but I really liked it so far. Anyway, you said we should be taking care of each other. I don't think libertarians really are going to leave dead children in the pits of Mordor. What? I don't think that libertarians are as heartless and cruel as you think they are. You want free healthcare, free education, and a safety net for the poorest among us. Look, I don't know exactly what you mean by free healthcare and free education. I'm just going to guess you mean state provided. But just because something is state provided doesn't mean it's free. Taxes ensure that it's not free in any realistic sense. And of course there should be, like, the better safety net for the poor isn't the government. The government's actually the reasons why we have poverty as we know it. And there's this essay called Scratching By, How Government Creates Poverty as We Know It. And there's also there's another essay or article by Roderick. It's a short one. It's on mutual aid institutions in the 20th century and how they really helped the poorest among the poor, and they did it without government permission. They were private institutions. I think some of them were private and clubs. I think others were more public, so it wasn't all necessarily private. So you say in terms of happiness, government should do whatever it has to do to accomplish that. I think that's a dangerous mindset. We shouldn't be allowing government to do whatever it wants just in the name of happiness. I think that's a really dangerous position. Because you're basically letting government do whatever they want as long as it says it's doing in the name of happiness. Or at least that's one possible result of what could happen. I don't really think that's beneficial to us. Libertarians aren't conservatives. Really, that's all I'm going to say about that. I have a video on it, and I'm just going to put it in the description. There's going to be a lot of things in the description, because again, I already been way too long-winded. Now, you say logic, and then you say, fuck Ron Paul. I thought you actually had some agreements with Ron Paul, but that's not what I want to talk about. I hate this use of logic by atheists. I'm an atheist myself. I know you can see a cross in the back, but I live with my grandmother, and she has it. She's actually not even religious anymore either. She just keeps it up there. So I'm not religious. But it really pisses me off how atheists somehow think that they have some sort of monopoly on logic. It's really arrogant. And a lot of the, I'm going to go on a rant here, a lot of the ways you're talking, Dusty, is hugely, hugely condescending. I watched your video about 3 times. The third time I was just cringing. I was done. Because first time I just did it just to make some mental notes. Second time I did some more scrupulous notes. Third time was today just to make sure that I had everything that you said and made sure that it was alright. And it's just like you're full of like anger and hatred and condescension, and I just don't understand it. That's not what logic is about. Logic is about being rational and calm and treating even your enemies as people who are worthy of. People who are enemies are inevitably worthy of your best, not your worst. You don't give your enemies your worst, otherwise you'll just either A, make more enemies, or B, just make your enemies stronger. What you've done here is given your enemies your worst, at least your enemies according to you, at least in economic terms. I just hate how atheists seem to think that they have some sort of monopoly on logic. It's hugely condescending, it's arrogant, and for God's sakes, you're not the only people who investigate logic, so get the fuck off your high horse. Anyway, and I'm saying that as an atheist. I'm not a religious person. I don't believe in any religions. I think some religions are interesting, like Taoism and Zen Buddhism, but I think they're interesting in a historical context, not necessarily a philosophical one, as counterculture movements. So that was it. I think your video is just the epitome of strawmans against libertarianism and libertarianism more generally. I don't think I've convinced you of much of anything, and that's fine. Nor do I think I've convinced anyone of anything, really, because this isn't all fully laid out. But I hope some of the links I've done can help. I hope some of it can clear the air. I hope you actually do watch this. I don't know if you will. And I hope some of your commenters will actually learn a thing or two about libertarianism, and that there's not just one sort of libertarianism. At best, what I hope for is that your viewers and you might just realize, oh hey, I overgeneralized a little bit. If you realize that, that would be great. For me, that'd be a victory. What I really aim for in these videos is understanding and acceptance, at least to some extent or another. I'm not looking for full, perfect 100% agreement. That's for the randists. Anyway, this is Rage Against the Clampdown. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. That'll be it for me. Thanks.